Welcome to this special series of podcast discussions with accomplished leaders in British Columbia construction. I'm Kirk LaPointe. Our guest today is Patrick Dennett, and he's had a remarkable career in the glass and aluminum construction business. But interestingly, too, he's also found in semi-retirement a new purpose. And I want to talk to him about that, too. Let's talk to Patrick now. What draws you into the line of work that you were drawn into, Patrick? What was it about this that really appealed?
Well, as a kid growing up, I always felt rewarded in doing little projects around the house. And in high school, I got drawn into the field of construction somewhat. And I was fortunate to meet a cousin that introduced me to the head of the department of BCIT and building technology, who really tweaked my passion to the point where it really turned me on. So
what do you think? What do you think it was, though, inside you? What was being tweaked? Yeah,
I think the creativity that comes along with being involved. Anything you touch, it's creating something new, and the approach you take to do that is always different. There is no one set path to do. It's how you solve a problem and how you get to the end of it. And it's just an exciting field that I found that really turned me on.
From the outside, do you think people understand that creativity? Do they kind of downplay it a little bit?
I don't think people realize it's like an art. Every day when you're involved, and I think that's a good message to get out when we do go out to the schools and try to interest people into our industry to talk about this whole subject and let people understand that, there is an opportunity for them to be creative and get some satisfaction in their job, not just going to work at 8 and quitting at 4. It's what you do throughout the day and how you approach it. It's just the sky is the limit.
Yeah, it is. And yet, as you say, people have to get that somehow. So do you impart stories? Do you kind of talk about, anecdotes and things that happen in the career to illustrate that for people to, kind of inspire them a bit to get involved?
I try to get that message out to, the younger fellas that are coming up in the industry and talk about my experiences along the way and some of the life skills I learned and my approach to the business, and hoping that some of that would, tweak their interest. And because I think there's a lot of people coming through that just need that extra little lift in some knowledge and what is available to them, that they can't just limit themselves. I think some people just stop and think, I'm at the end of where I can go, and they don't realize really where they can go. I mean, there is just no limit in our industry, what you can do, what you can be, no matter how you got started. I mean,
usually when people come alive in a particular role, they realize that they've discovered, or that somehow it's been discovered, their hidden talent. Can you remember when your talent no longer was hidden? It kind of came forward?
I guess there's two steps, but again, I was very fortunate to come into our industry at a time when technology was a huge factor in making change to how we do things. But starting at BCIT, and I keep going back to that, we did every physical aspect of construction: architectural drawing, spec writing, surveying. We did the structural design of buildings, the mechanical design, electrical. So all those triggered interests in a field that opened the doors. And I didn't always use that. Oh, we were even into Fortran, writing Fortran. And those skills, you don't realize at the time just how valuable they are. So as time went on and technology expanded so quickly, I was able to fall back on that and pick it up, particularly in the communication side, on the computer, and getting into to writing programs that help me manage my business. And so again, it's just all this creativity part of it. You fall back on those early skills and realize that you've been taught a path, and now if the roadmap is there for you to follow somewhat, and make your own too.
Tell me a little bit about when you make the move into leadership. It's, it becomes very different. You've got responsibilities, accountability. In some cases, you've got to figure out how to make payroll, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Tell me what that does to shape you in the early days of it.
Well, I know when I started my business, we started very small, and there was one year we started off losing money every month. And you talk about a disincentive to coming to work, to looking after your staff and providing for your home.
Yeah.
For the first 6 months. So it was a real challenge. But I always fell back on my connections and the way we approach things and the opportunities came along. And that was through good management and some luck, I guess, too. But because you set a path of responsibility and accountability, I think people in the industry look to people to help them in situations to get out. And that turned our year around when we were approached to take over a job to finish it, right? And so that's just one example.
Do you have to make sure that you're not sweating in public, kind of about the uncertainty here?
Well, it's like you as a goalie, you put your best mask on and paint it up and come to work and away you go. But you have to...
Stuff gets by me, though, unlike you. Yeah.
I came to the office with a good attitude and tried to keep everybody primed to do their job and continue on with not take any shortcuts, but to do the job, do a quality job in a safe environment, and just don't make any changes. And that will help us out in the end. And I think you don't know how your staff feels at the time, but I did, when I retired, got some feedback that really floored me on how they're perceived working for the company and the leadership that was there. Right?
Did that surprise you?
It did, because you don't get that feedback. I mean, you're going out there doing what you think is the right thing to do, and you're hoping you're showing leadership to help all your staff and their different skill sets along and giving them the tools to do it. And to hear them come back after and say that was rewarding. That was really rewarding to hear that.
What are these ingredients of leadership, do you think? And what are the values that you have to convey to the people who work for you?
I always said fiscal responsibility. When we're running projects, we have to make sure that they stay on target, on schedule, on budget. And the project managers were taught the life skills to do that. In the field, all our tradesmen from the superintendent down were taught to do the job right. I didn't want to have a problem with a job in the future because we didn't do it right. So we followed all protocols to do a good quality job. And even if it was going to cost us money, I said, don't worry about that. That's on my dime, not yours. You're there to do what you're trained to do and do it right. And in a very safe environment too, because I don't want any shortcuts in safety. And so many of them would come back and say, geez, we just couldn't wait to get back to work with you because of all these attributes, right? So that was big. Personally, my drive was quality, performance, and fiscal responsibility. And I've talked about that before, but I always made sure I knew exactly what was going on in my business every day. And I think a lot of people, and I share that story because I think a lot of people don't realize when they have a problem, and if they don't manage their business properly, they will get a surprise 6 months after the year end. It's too late then. You can get on top of your finances on the day it's starting to happen. To wait after your statements are done, the horses have left the barn.
Yeah.
But the driving force for me was just the satisfaction to see all those elements come together.
Do you drive by buildings and sites and go, that's That's us there.
My wife got tired of it, and we go, oh, we did this job, we did it, we're doing that renovation. And when you drive by a building and say, now we're doing the second one on the one we did originally, that is something. But to go downtown Vancouver and point to Guinness Tower, Rogers Arena, and Eaton Center, and all these projects you're involved with, that it is gratifying to say, hey, I was part of this. And out at the airport and wherever we go, I mean, we can point to physical structures we've had that were tangible. Doing Expo 86 was a pivotal time for us.
Yeah,
we
I
did
bet.
75% of the work and the glazing, and that was huge. And it was, I talked about creativity. Those jobs had to be done in a short period of time, but the buildings only had to last 6 months. So it gave us some flexibility in what we can do. Architects wanted all these fancy, creative art, like the Northwest Territories Pavilion, a blue skylight roof. So we solved that problem for them. And, those were really fun times.
And you had to hustle up.
Oh.
I mean, it was also a bit of an uncertain expo, and everybody had to work with kind of an assumption that things were going to work out, but it wasn't all that clear, was it?
No. And you know what? When cell phones came in, I had that big box.
Oh, yeah.
On my console. And that saved my bacon, because when I was driving to site, at the site, I could pick up the phone and get onto all our suppliers and instantly get action on little critical parts to these projects. So rather than waiting in traffic and getting back to your office and dealing with it there, that was a huge turning point in managing projects for me.
Those were the days when they allowed distracted driving.
That's right.
Thank goodness for
Not
that.
hands-free.
Thank goodness for that. You've had these great experiences, long-lasting career, and I think what's very clear in your career too is that at a certain point, and a pretty early turning point, you began to give back. You began to see that you had to put something back in as you were deriving something from it. Again, what made you do that?
Well, I guess I had really good mentors, like senior executives in the large glass companies, for instance, the suppliers. That one in particular, Bill Corrigan of PPG, came to me and said, you know what, you need to get involved with the Vancouver Regional Construction Association, or the Construction Labor Relations, and the VRCA. And I said, okay. And he introduced me there, and it started. I got into it right away, and I felt enthusiastic at the time to be able to contribute to add to what the work of the associations to make the industry better, and how we do things, and deal with all the issues like payment and quality of work and quality of drawings and all the issues in the day that continue on today. And to be part of influencing how we approach that, and working with architects, designers, owners, to do it was a passion that really got me going and drove me to continue on. And then you meet a lot of very, very senior executives that are passionate as well. And you can pick up the phone and phone anybody in the industry. They're always open to offer you their advice. As a small businessman and running a small business, you always have an issue that say, hey, hey, Kirk, what would you do in this situation, right? And instantly, with no holdback.
It's interesting how you find out, right, very quickly, as soon as you give to an organization, to an association, how quickly it gives back to you too.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And it's not as selfish. You don't go in it selfishly. You go in a generous giving kind of approach, and the give back is there. It's just like you said. It's amazing how that just transpires, and that's been my feeling anyway along the way.
I want you to talk a little bit about this almost like new resolved, not hobby, but passion that you've got with a hatchery.
Yes, throughout all my career, I gave back to the industry, and that's all I did. But when I did retire, I'd offered to help out at the local Mossam Creek Hatchery. In 2013, they had a terrific fire. The hatchery burned to the ground. And I picked up the phone again and said, hey, remember, we met and I said I could help you. Oh, yeah, right. Can you come up and we're having a meeting with the city. We're going to see what we're going to do here. So we met and I had a good relationship with the city. So the volunteer organization that ran it said, hey, would you mind being our construction manager? And I said, sure.
Wow. Yeah.
And that evolved from there. And working with the city, with my relationship, I had a demolition permit within a day just before Christmas. Unheard of today. And one thing led to another. And they, as a volunteer group, they didn't have any skill sets to do a lot of the other issues that came along with fighting with the insurance company over the loss and undercovered. We had to deal with a development permit application with the city. I took that on. And so I learned too, just the steps, and we did all right. We did it. The city didn't want they didn't want to show any favoritism. So we made it happen. And again, I talk about this driving force. I set goals for myself to get this hatchery done when the fish returned for the fall. So in December, we started this journey. In 6 months, I had a building permit, and I told them that I couldn't start construction till we had money to at least build the hatchery component, because we had two sections. One was a hatchery, one was an education center. And I laid out the building. It was already designed, but I constructed it in a way that we could have an independent hatchery first in case we didn't have enough funding to do the whole project. So in 6 months, August 1st, we had shovels in the ground. And in December, I had the hatchery built and operational, and we continued on doing the education center. So, and the building was completed in April of the following year. So from original destruction, it was 16 months.
Wow.
To a brand new building.
That's incredible. But I'm really interested in the larger meaning of this, because it obviously was a purpose for you. Here you had gone into you were in semi-retirement at that point, something like that. You're keeping an eye on a business, but really you're not there every hour, hovering over people. What's the message, do you think, for other people that are in that space where they're coming to the close of a career and they know it, and yet they want this purpose on the other side?
I call it a soft exit strategy. Yeah. So I had got out of the active business, but I had all our own affairs and business to look after. So it kept me going and motivated to have my hands in the industry. I had all the connections, and so I was able to use my skill set to give back to the local community for a change. And that helped me, because there was really no accountability other than what I made myself accountable for. So that helped me continue on with my enthusiasm for the industry to continue doing something. And then post the construction, I took it upon myself, as I had a discussion with you before our interview, about meeting up with Rick Hansen, and I decided that I wanted to add one more element to this building to make it accessible and inclusive. So again, took that on, and we became the first gold certified building in Port Moody under the Rick Hansen Foundation, and the first hatchery. So again, there's another milestone that helps in this satisfaction and continue that journey in the industry to do good works.
You speak with it with such pride of an accomplishment in something like this. And a lot of people might think, if I retire, I won't have the same sense of pride in what I do. Are you telling people it's still possible?
Oh, it's possible. In fact, I always say, play within your comfort zone. I'm not somebody who can go out door knocking, but this opportunity came along to build something in the community, and how many people get to say they built a fish hatchery. So I was completely in my comfort zone. So that helped me too. And I was able to negotiate with all our contacts I had in the industry to help and contribute to this. And everybody that came up along the construction journey said, oh man, this is beautiful. How do I get involved? What can I do? Or what's your budget for this? And I've got tons of stories that I could share with people on that and alone, because it's actually, I built a $1.2 million hatchery for $650,000 because of all the help we got out there, and big organizations.
Yeah.
Like Lafarge came to the table and offered to do all the concrete, donated, because we represented their pillars and they wanted to share and do something in the community on that same basis. So those are growing partnerships, and that's the message we can get out there.
So you probably paid it forward at some point, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we continue to, these people still want to see it and be involved and say, hey, we had a part in this too. And we promote that and remind them.
I don't want to sound like an old guy here. But
I'm the old guy here.
Well, okay. But I think there's a perception that perhaps the impulsiveness of youth means that it maybe isn't going to have the same kind of trajectory that you had here, which is, staying the course, sticking with things, really, persisting through the challenges, and then coming toward the end of a career, thinking about purpose post-career. How do you kind of try in your daily practice to get young people interested in this line of work and to stay that course and to think about a lifelong pursuit?
Any opportunity I'd have, and I'm not really presented with it that often, but through our association, I think there's a great opportunity for retired or semi-retired members to get out and work with the association, to go out to the schools and give this exact message you're just relaying here out. And I think there's a big awareness issue out there that getting it from the career counselor at the school isn't the same as having somebody out of the industry come up and say, hey, these are the opportunities. And there's a young fella dated my granddaughter, and he's out, he wants to get into it. He's not sure what he wants to do, and he's not sure. So I keep saying, hey, come on, these are things that could happen. The sky's the limit, and you pick something that you want to get into, and just the world's at your feet, at your doorstep.
Yeah, because if you're looking for quick gratification, the trades are pretty good quick gratification.
Instantaneous. And you get a good, solid apprenticeship that can be with you for all your life. And a lot of senior executives started in that position and worked their way through and have a good foundation for the whole. I didn't start in the trade. I started in the technical side, as I mentioned. So I also had the skill set to do practical work if I needed to, and would lead by example with my people, right? So
I'm asking all the participants in this series roughly the same question around legacy and how they feel they would properly be remembered in all of this. What would be your ambition there in terms of what people would think of you, Patrick, and how they would describe you?
I think my legacy would be that I came into this world, and it was at this stage in life, I left the world and I left it a better place. And I strive to leave it a better place with everything I do in terms of being involved and doing things in the environmental side. I'm not a huge environmentalist, but to give back and do salmon enhancement and try to build up and teach my grandchildren that message and get them involved and have them learn the skill sets by helping me in certain projects. If I can have them say, I was at one service one time and the grandchildren got up and said, my papa did this and he'd always be there for me to do that. Or that was pretty powerful. And so if along the way, if people viewed what I did as along those lines, that would be gratification for me. But I'm not out there to say, hey, I want that road named after me or anything. I just go along this path and because I want to, and it's rewarding for me. So it is selfish in a way as well, if you could find that.
But you've had some great chapters.
Oh, I have, yeah. And I've never looked back. And I've been, like I said earlier, I am very fortunate to be in this industry at a time where you see all this huge change in how we do things. But the thing is, there's still a lot of things that go on today that were there back when I first got in too. So there's a lot of change, and then there's a lot of things that don't change, and we can still make that change. So younger people come in, hey, there's still room for you to do a lot in this industry to make changes, to leave your footprint, leave your mark, and don't cut yourself off at a certain level. And that's what I said to the younger group at the association. You created this under 40 group, but in a way you've kind of separated yourself out from just the general membership. We didn't have that. And yet I was chair when I was under 40, and that didn't restrict me, but in a way you're restricting yourself by having that opportunity. So
yeah. Well, you feel fortunate, and but I'm very fortunate to have talked to you today. It's been a really nice conversation, and thank you so much for your time.
Well, I appreciate that, Kirk, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I do feel very passionate about our industry and continue to do so, and still involved.
Yeah. Well,
so
keep going.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Kirk LaPointe.